Got it.
Okay, so in the discussion of the new book, the name of it is what?
The Bodhi tree?
Yeah, the Bodhi tree. That's all. That's the whole
Hmm.
story. Okay.
Yeah.
And so this is a fairly new book that's been put out by Santikaro, and it's kind of an amalgamation of a lot of stuff that came from Buddhadasa. So even though the book is only a year or two old, it
Hmm.
may in fact have stuff that Bhikkhu Buddhadasa said 40, 50, 60 years old. I
Wow.
haven't talked with Santikaro about it, but we do know that there are some questions or issues about how he's translated stuff,
Hmm.
but that generally really good.
Mm.
So, um, this kind of feeling then that you were mentioning
Hmm.
is one of three kinds of feelings that is normally there. One kind of feeling is I like it.
Hmm.
And the second kind of feeling is I don't like it.
Hmm.
Then the third kind of feeling is I'm not sure whether I like it or not.
Right.
It's not a neutral feeling. Let's add number four and call a neutral feeling a neutral feeling. Now, a neutral feeling has very little or no weight to it
Mm.
and may not even be seen as a feeling at all
I
because this feeling that we're talking about that is neither um, pleasant nor unpleasant, we actually want it to resolve to either pleasant or unpleasant.
Oh, okay. And that's probably the drive, the thing responsible, for the drive when I got up and gave the cup, right, and handed over the cup, because let's resolve it, right? It's like,
Right, right. We're trying to bring it to a resolution,
eh,
and we can see that this is, in fact, part of the self preservation instinct in the sense that somehow or another we're kind of looking for danger,
mhm,
even when there's no possibility of danger or the likelihood of danger being very low. Still, the human being, because of old habits, the way that we were raised,
mhm.
and the instinct itself, is to keep looking for danger. So
Oh,
we don't see things as just the object. We see it in the sense of how we feel about it.
mhm,
Is it safe? Is it good? Or is it dangerous?
mhm,
Okay. So now we have a problem if we see something and it gives us a feeling
mhm,
of insecurity because we don't know what it is.
mhm.
You see, if we know it's dangerous, then we know exactly what to do.
Oh, I see.
But if it's not dangerous, then we don't know what to do
Mhm,
because we don't know whether it's dangerous or not. We don't know how it's dangerous,
mhm,
etc.
mhm.
So this actually then is the feeling that leads to fear
Oh, because we don't know,
because
and
no, we don't know exactly. This is that whole thing about the fear of the unknown. So now we have an unknown feeling.
oh, I
We
see.
don't know what it is. It's not fully recognized yet. And because of that,
Hmm.
we are now going to add a new component,
Hmm.
and that is the component of doubt,
Doubt.
uncertainty,
Hmm.
insecurity, etc., like that, which
Hmm.
is not a really great feeling. So if you don't like something, then that's already a negative feeling. And if you don't know whether you like it or not,
Uh-huh.
that's now a confused feeling, a
Oh,
doubtful feeling.
I see. Right, so then the
Okay.
mind gets defiled basically in the process.
Except that then the students will get the idea, oh, then there's only one good kind of feeling, and that good kind of feeling is I like it.
No, no, it's not.
No, it's not either, because if I like it now, I want it, and that can really cause trouble.
Gotcha.
So all of these feelings are problematic. The feelings we don't know, the feelings of liking, the feelings of not liking, and this also feeling of I'm not sure whether I like it or not.
Oh.
But Bhikkhu Buddhadasa is adding a fifth feeling that he's calling a wise feeling.
Oh.
And what that means is that if you are wise to these other feelings,
Hmm.
then that's a new way of doing things. That is now is not the feeling that becomes the important part. It's the wisdom of recognizing this is a feeling.
Right. Right.
And so we have a chance to change it. Here's an example of that. The child is having a tantrum. When the child has a tantrum, mom wants to have her own tantrum. She wants the kid to shut up. That's especially true if the kid's having a tantrum over not getting Fruit Loops while he's riding in the cart at the grocery store.
Wow.
And so how can mom get the kid to shut up? She gets frustrated. She's already told him no, and the easiest way is just to get the Fruit Loops off the shelf and give it to the kid. But if she does, she'll say, "Here now, you got what you wanted." And so she doesn't get what she wanted. Or another thing that the woman can do is that she can walk away from the car. She can flee. She can escape, abandoning the child, which is also not a very good thing for the child to have to go through. Is being abandoned. Mom walked off, left me in this cart, wanting Fruit Loops that I can't have. Okay. Another example of it would be that she raises her hand. "I'm going to smack you if you don't shut up about the Fruit Loops." And here the kid is, "Ah, ah, ah," you know. So now the child is adding fear because mom's about to hit him while he's incapable of controlling himself. So the child is now in a state of tantrum. And the problem is that the mother is not aware of her feelings. If she was aware of her feelings, then she could figure out how to act appropriately. That's why Bhikkhu Buddhadasa puts wise feelings as a separate kind of feeling rather than wise good feelings, wise bad feelings, and wise confused feelings. We don't even have to make that distinction.
Right.
Once the feelings are wise, now we can act wisely.
I see. Got it. So that means that the revised understanding is there's positive feelings, there's negative feelings. There is the neither a positive nor negative one, which is a true neutral feeling, which doesn't have any weight, no drive, like we don't detect it. And the other one is the confused feeling that actually does give us a drive. So in my case, there was a moment where I was deciding whether or not to actually get up and hand the cup over, and it just happened so quickly, right? Like that was the drive to the side, and then it just happens, and then bam, it's over. That's what was happening there. I see.
Right. In that case, correct. Sometimes these feelings happen really fast, and we act upon them, and then it's over. But the part of the reason why we are practicing meditation then and doing it in seclusion is because when these feelings come up, there's no place for them to go. There's no object of handing the cup to the girl and then it's finished. Now we've got to deal directly with the feelings, which is really a good. That's part of the reason for the seclusion, is because whether we dealt with it correctly or not out in the world, we can generally deal with things fairly quickly and smoothly and get it over with. To where while we're sitting in meditation and this confused feeling arises, we have to deal with that confused feeling.
Right.
Because if we don't, then and we deal with it ignorantly, that confused feeling will bring up doubt. It'll bring up restlessness. It'll bring up fear, and that not liking something will also bring up fear and also possibly anger, because all anger is based in fear.
Got it. Okay, I'm just gonna.
If you didn't have fear at its base, you wouldn't get angry.
Oh, right. I see. Oh, okay. Right. Got it. I'm just gonna mindfully push my glasses up because I can feel them. I can feel them drooping.
Right, but you're doing it now consciously. This is the whole point. Is I'm not saying don't ever do this. Well, yeah, it's a good idea to not touch the face.
Right.
And so when you begin to do that, you can say, well, I'm going to do it now because I'm consciously doing it intentionally rather than it happening automatically
Right.
or subconsciously.
Right.
So
I mean,
you're bringing up what used to be subconscious into the conscious.
I see. Yeah.
Good. That's the whole point. Waking up.
Yeah, it's very interesting. This needs to be tested more, over the next, 2 or 3 weeks. But, you know, because right now, it seems like like there's always a new glow after you finish, rereading something or you learn something, and it's like everything looks like, like a nail because you've got a new hammer, and so it it feels like, it feels like that. Yeah, like the mind is cooler now. It's nice to see. Oh yes, that's just a thought. Oh yes, body is hot. Oh yes, eye is seeing, and it's great. And there's a certain like subtler feeling of the mind like is certain. Oh yes, for sure, that is just a thought, and it doesn't go further. Now, this has to be tested longer to see, what's going on here, because this might just be, mind clinging to look at these, shiny things that we just read in the book, and oh yes, everything seems like this, and then you kind of stop investigating when that happens. So, but anyway, yeah, it definitely, after the book, it's definitely good stuff. It's good stuff.
Yes. I was in those days literally or let us say figurative in a way of speaking, blown away by how exactly spot on Bhikkhu Buddhadasa was. I think that he gets a lot of people like that. Of course he's right. Why
Yeah.
couldn't I have thought of that
Yeah.
myself?
Very simple, and you read it and you're like, oh yes, these categories, I have seen these categories, and then yes, and then he's talking about the whole thing. I mean, basically what we've been talking about is the beginning of the practice, just to see this in action and look at it, and then I'm like, wow, that's pretty good. But having said that, another question, that came up, when I read through near the end of the book, which is, he explains, the role of, mindfulness, like that mindfulness is to deliver specific wisdom on time when the thing comes up, and he talks about, of course, the 16 stages of mindfulness that the Buddha had laid out. And there are 4 sections. I mean, basically, what we've talked about, the mindfulness of body, the feelings, and then I think the mind, and then lastly, all things that can trick the mind into clinging. So
The
then,
objects of the mind. Okay,
right,
yes.
and so this,
In Pali, it's Kaya Nupassana, Veda Nupassana, Chitta Nupassana, and Dhamma Nupassana. Now, looking at it from the perspective of Dhamma Nupassana means that now we are understanding more about what the word Dhamma means, which means basically happening. What's happening?
What's
The
happening?
Dhamma is right. So, a good definition, a good working definition of Dhamma is the word happening. So the Buddha Dhamma is not just the Buddha's teaching, it's the happening that he's describing, the here now.
The here now.
And so Dhamma Nupassana is getting in touch with that which is happening in the mind right now that is separate from the state that the mind is in. Okay? So imagine the difference between a bucket and the contents of a bucket. The bucket may be new, the bucket may be old, the bucket may be dented, it might be rusty, it might be dirty and filthy, but still that bucket can carry gasoline, it can carry oil, it can carry water, it can carry milk, it can carry butter. Okay, so the state of the bucket is different from the content of the bucket.
Oh, I see.
Just like the mind itself is different from the contents of the mind.
So this is basically talking about, several combinations. Like, for example, during the formal practice, an image of a girl may come up while my mind is bright, versus an image of a hazy image of a girl may come up when the mind is dull. Like, basically, like the separation between these two things, like dull mind, something else going on in the dull mind, versus bright mind, something going on in the bright mind.
Right, exactly. So the state of the mind does affect the contents,
Mm.
and the content does affect the state,
Right.
just like the body affects the feelings. The feelings of so all of these things are tied in together with interrelations.
Mm-hmm.
But we're doing a separation so that we can see the role of each one
I see.
and better understand the thing, and then we put it back together again as a conglomerate that we can call human being.
I see. I see. So then,
So
oh yeah, go ahead.
so the mind itself then in the Sita Nupassana, we're not so much interested in what the mind is doing, but
Mm-hmm.
the state that the mind is in.
Mm-hmm.
What's the condition of the bucket itself? Like you said, is it bright,
Mm-hmm.
or is it clean,
Mm-hmm.
or is it encumbered?
I
An
see.
example of that also would be, is it full?
I see.
Because if it's already full, you don't have room for anything else. Or is it empty?
I
So
see.
the bucket and the state of the bucket itself
Mm-hmm.
is then looking at it in the sense of difference between the content. Now,
I
in that regard, when we're talking about the content, really what we're looking at is the process of the filling, the carrying, and the emptying of the bucket,
mm-hmm.
rather than what the actual contents are.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So, in this regard, we're looking at not this. If you think of the thoughts as clouds going by,
Mm-hmm.
we're no longer concerned with this particular cloud,
Mm-hmm.
but we're interested in cloudiness
Right.
or the process of. In this regard, we can talk about it now in the sense of anicca,
Mm-hmm.
or temporariness, is like the filling up and the emptying of the bucket.
Right.
We
Yeah.
begin. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because it's after like reading that brief section where the four phases are are summarized, I guess the question that I have now is, yeah, in my formal practice, should there be greater precision, when training, the mindfulness? Because it's great to sit down in the formal practice and there is joy. It is great, and most of the time, when the mind has wandered, I bring it back. But as laid out in the phases that the Buddha lays out, I don't really investigate the sensations, or whatever is coming in the mind. Usually what happens is something comes up, great, come back. Something comes up, great, come back. And there's not so much the investigation, or what you said before, like the process. There's not really like that kind of stuff going on when I practice. And so now the question is, yeah, is precision, more precision or investigation needed in the form?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, in that regard, we'll say that the precision itself is a skill process,
Mm-hmm.
and that the precision will get better over time.
Got it.
All right. So, that's the first thing. In other words, the music student will be better off playing music that he's capable of playing at his skill level now,
Mm-hmm.
rather than playing music that's too hard for him. That was one of the basic mistakes I was making in high school in learning to play the piano. Was I didn't want to play the stuff that I could play. I wanted to play the stuff I couldn't play.
I see where this is going.
Okay. So at that level of then the precision is recognizing that your capabilities will grow.
Mm,
Once you begin to note things, your noting skill will improve, so
I,
that you begin to note things this way, and now you can see it in a different way. You're noting more about it.
right. Mm-hmm.
And so the content of the mind is not so important
Mm,
as the fact that these clouds are moving,
mm-hmm.
that they move through the mind, that the mind, in fact, doesn't stay
Mm-hmm.
on anything. The contents are constantly in turmoil.
Right.
It's constantly, okay, everything is moving, moving, moving. Every thought is not permanent. Every thought is extraordinarily temporary.
Yeah, I mean, usually what happens, when I sit down is, yeah, it'll bounce around between a couple of sensations, an itch here, an itch there. I might hear something, then the mind will say something, and then come back, and then itch here, and then like some tension here, and then mind says something, and then come back, and then like it'll bounce all over the place.
But that's exactly the process that we want to have, because in the old way of doing it, we would get stuck on something
Hmm.
and not let it go.
I see.
And so then the mind, according to the way that Donald Trump sounds when he's talking about windmills, it goes, okay. But
Uh-huh.
that's because we get stuck on something.
Uh-huh.
And the new process that you're beginning to practice is to constantly keep letting go
Hmm.
of whatever it is that the mind comes up with, and it begins to change. And
Right.
so we no longer get stuck on any thought or anything in particular, except that now we're going to be limiting
Hmm.
what we're going to allow into the mind. We're going to start drawing a line in there, and that line is at the point between, in this moment,
Hmm.
you have to make a decision. We're not talking about a full on,
Hmm.
like, 10 commandments that you can chisel and put in front of a courthouse. But in the moment, you have to make the decision, a new one,
Hmm.
of is this thought appropriate or not?
Oh, interesting.
And if the thought is about the past or the future,
Hmm.
then that's a good guideline to take, but it's not always 100% that if it's in the past, it's bad,
Hmm.
but rather it's worth scrutiny for wholesomeness.
It's okay.
Because the most wholesome thoughts that you can have in this regard are thoughts about what's happening in the present moment.
I
For
see.
instance, there is an itch on the hand. There is that going on.
Hmm.
There is shaking in the leg. There is the head nodding up and down. There is all kinds of stuff happening in the body. The thumbs, in fact, are twiddling. And so, in this regard, what we're saying is that we're starting now as if we're taking an inventory. And we're constantly going around taking an inventory, but the Buddha uses the word investigation,
I see.
that we're constantly moving around, getting a full view.
Hmm.
And the more times that we go around looking at what's going on, the better we know it. The better we know it, and the more details we'll begin to get onto.
Oh, fun game. Fun
Uh huh.
game.
Game on, exactly.
Game
So,
on. Do it.
and so we begin to watch what's going on in the mind with this decisional point: is this thought worthy of having or not?
Oh, I see.
We very rarely do that.
Oh, for
This
sure.
is We don't. We just let whatever thoughts come to mind. There they are, and they'll stay as long as they want, and then they throttle on off as the new thoughts come in, and it's almost as if um, the mind itself now is in control of
Hmm.
what contents are there,
Hmm.
and that we're changing that, and we're saying no. We're going to start making uh, judgments and decisions about what kind of thoughts are wholesome, what is worthy of my attention.
I see. So, for example, just now my right ear is itching, so it registers as something in my mind, and so I just examine it, and then I can just say, yeah, it's not, and then I just shift my attention back to the video feed. That's what we're getting at here.
That's exactly part of the reason for the um, strong determination practice of Goenka, is that even though the hand does itch, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not going to scratch it. I'm
Uh,
going to let it itch
mm-hmm.
on its own, and
Mm-hmm.
I may or may not be coming back and looking and paying attention to it, but that choice is mine now. I can actually ignore that itch because I am going to sit still.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to scratch. Or in your case, I'm not going to let the glasses get
Yeah,
pushed back into place. I'm going to
yeah,
let them droop onto the nose.
yeah. I'm not pushing my glasses. I'm not gonna push my glasses. Oh yeah,
And so this is really, really good training
I see. Right.
because
Go ahead.
uh, basically what recognizing is that the mind is very fast
Very
and
fast.
it moves from object to object to object, sometimes very fast. And because of that, with no guidance, it's just all over the place, making a mess of everything.
Mhm.
But when we begin to put uh, um, constraints on it, like with driving a car, it's better to stay on the road.
Right.
Okay. So, in that regard, it's better to stay on the straight and narrow,
Mm.
even though it takes a little bit of guidance. We're not going to let the mind just wander all over the place. We're going
Right.
to put boundaries on it, and those boundaries have to do with is it wholesome or not, is the first kind of boundary. But eventually, what we begin to see is, oh, thoughts about the past and thoughts
Mm.
about the future are
Mhm.
subject to worry, subject to frustration, subject to problem solving, and are not conducive to feel good right now. So let's not think about the past.
They
Let's
lead
think
to.
about
Yeah.
right now.
Right.
What's worthy of our attention right now? The answer to that is, well, the way that the Buddha teaches is dukkha nirodha. Let's start paying attention to what is dukkha and what is nirodha.
Yeah. What is that?
Let's get ourselves into a state so that there is no suffering.
Got it.
Let's experiment with and find that third noble truth, because that third noble truth of freedom from suffering is
Mhm.
also kind of a little nibbana. It's not going to be permanent, but
Oh
it's
yeah.
going to be a cooling off. It's going to be, ah,
Right.
I'm in a state of rest now. And I know it because I've investigated it. And
Yeah.
this feels good. And I know that it feels good because that's what I was expecting. That's what I did. And now that I'm investigating it, that's it. This is it. We can do that.
It is good stuff for sure.
Good, good stuff. And that by doing so, that gains confidence that we can continue to do this, that
Hmm.
we can control the content of the mind,
Right. Exactly.
and that the content of the mind also influences how we feel.
Hmm.
So if we have thoughts about an enemy, we'll begin to feel anger and hot and afraid and whatnot like that.
Hmm.
But if we begin to think about a good close friend,
Hmm.
now our feeling changes.
Hmm.
So let's not think about enemies, let's think about friends.
Right. Exactly.
All right. So what are our friends? Well, our friends are peacefulness, gratitude,
Mhm.
generosity.
Yeah.
So let's think about things that are really friendly and
Hmm.
not think about things that are unfriendly or unwholesome or lead us into feelings of unwholesomeness.
Hmm.
Now, that doesn't mean that those unwholesome feelings like anger or agitation are not going to come up.
Hmm.
But in fact, during these days of the coronavirus,
Hmm.
people may only have a tiny little flash
Hmm.
or even the word coronavirus, and all of a sudden now they feel upset and agitated and fearful again. But the reality of the situation is this moment is safe.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's fine. No need to buy, like 3 packs of toilet paper and none of that. Nah, nah, for sure. For sure.
Or not even any reason to go out to buy toilet paper because
I
it's
know.
actually safer just to stay here in the house.
Exactly. Exactly. I see. Yeah. It's been great. Like yeah, the thanks for the book recommendation. It's good stuff, for sure. It's, obviously good good stuff to think about, to review. Um, yeah, I mean yeah, I think you pretty much I guess addressed all the questions that came up from a first reading, from the book. Yeah, and I guess the fun stuff now is to put some boundaries on the mind while practicing some deep breaths or the panting breaths. Put some
Hmm.
limits when that happens. I guess the lowest hanging fruit is, yeah, there's going to be thoughts of, especially like we discussed with Matt last time, which is, yeah, when we're doing the panting, there's always going to be a part of the mind that says, can we stop? And that's be a good way to put the boundary. Nah, let's keep going. That's probably the best way to do it.
That's an excellent point of view. Yes, exactly so. Let's not quit and give up, because that's going to be taking us back into the ordinary. Let's go ahead and work with getting into that third noble truth, so that we are, in fact, satisfied. I very much like that word satisfied. Now that I've seen it in the Pali Dictionary, looking up the word idiyapada. Now, idiyapada actually is in the Anapanasati Sutta as one of the things to develop. And that the definition of idiya can be used the word power.
Power.
But the actual definition is not power in the sense of spiritual powers, but the power of satisfaction, the power of success. Even the word wealthiness, that you feel wealthy, and the way that we develop wealthiness is through generosity, right? Okay, yeah. So we're actually now developing your mental power, the idiya. And that the foundations of this power is mindfulness, investigation, effort. In fact, the Four Noble Truths, or not, the part of the Eightfold Noble Path that we're practicing so strongly is what gives us that power. And the power is the power of being the lion, the power of the attitude of being the winner. Fantastic. The power of the attitude, I can do this. It's a can do.
Oh, for sure.
And that's the power. The power is confidence.
Got it. Yeah, it's been nice this week. It's been good stuff.
Excellent.
Yeah. So the rest, yeah, no other questions would be like, I'm definitely open to like any like topic that you might have in mind. Yeah, nothing on my side here.
Well, actually, this has been a good place that we've talked, and it will be a good cutoff point. So we can leave that with a kind of a bit of a review about these kind of feelings that we have. That if we are wise to our feelings,
right,
then we can basically feel the way we want to feel.
Right. Exactly.
By gladdening the mind. I caught you.
Yep.
Taking that deep breath. Okay. So if that poor lady who had that kid who wants those sugar pops or whatever and is having a tantrum for them, there's other ways that she could do that. She could distract the child. One thing is to pick the child up out of the basket and hold the child and get the child interested in some other cereal that mom wants him to have.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, if she says I don't want you to have Fruit Loops, but it's okay to have cornflakes, then let's look at the chicken on the box of the cornflakes. And so we distract the child and do it lovingly. Because now the mom is concerned with the child directly rather than being concerned with herself, being stuck with a kid that's having a tantrum.
Right, like embarrassment, right?
Embarrassment, exactly. Much of what the mother's got is the embarrassment. But if she can put her embarrassment aside and deal directly with the child, then everything will work out. But she has to be aware of that embarrassment. She's got to be aware of how she feels about the kid having the tantrum. Otherwise, she'll have one too. And so this is the waking up process. All right, so I'm using that as an example, but you can find plenty of times when
for like
it applies.
Many times. It's for example, since we're talking about this, speech. It's very easy to take a side or to think that whatever we said originally was right, and then if somebody disagrees or somebody says no because this, it's very easy to have embarrassment or anger set in. or like denial set in because whatever I said was wrong. And so it's very easy to happen. So,
Programmers, when they talk to each other, they get into that, No, I'm right. You're wrong. Oh, my code's better than yours. My idea is better than yours.
oh, for sure. If you look at the code, you're like, nah. So,
Instead of working as a team, oh, you're right. Yeah. Thank you for telling me that.
right,
But
exactly.
we don't. We go have a tantrum instead
Right, exactly.
because of our feelings of being attacked.
Right, right.
When in fact, they did not attack the feelings or did not attack you at all. They're attacking the code. I am not the code.
And this goes back to the doing without a doer, right? I can program, I can talk, design without, getting riled up. Like, well, it's not I can, but like can talk, design without me getting riled up, right? Like me getting riled up. And I've been a little more conscious about that, especially when talking to the Zen master, because the Zen master is really relentless when it comes to these things. Say something, nah, that's wrong. Say something, no, that's not how it is. And there are many, many opportunities to talk with him and not get riled up. let me just put it that way. 20 times today, I counted, around 20 times today. It's good stuff.
Okay. Well, you might, in fact, want to try a new phrase with him.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. And just keep saying it over and over again. You're right.
I have, yep. Yesterday we went for a walk at night around like the harbor, and I was like, right. Yep, right. That's what I did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So give the one who's having the tantrum,
mm-hmm.
give them some comfort.
Give them what they're looking for.
Yeah, right. Because they're in a tantrum mode and they don't know it.
Gotcha.
But you know how you feel. And this is why Bhikkhu Buddhadasa is so strong on wisdom at the point of contact.
Right.
When this stuff hits you, be aware of how you feel about it. Because now you're in charge because you're aware of your feelings. And if you're not aware of your feelings, then you're out of control.
Right. Oh, gotcha. Right. Yeah. And I think it's also useful, to maybe, pay a little more attention to what it feels like when, mindfulness is right on time and you're in control versus when, you're not in control. Because sometimes, it's easy then to see when you're beginning to slide out of control. In my context, this usually happens when conversations get longer and longer. You kind of, attention is going back and forth, and then you're kind of getting preoccupied with what's being said. Then it becomes a little easy to get caught up in, okay, well, that's not right, or no, like that's not, and then the conversation can get heated, or in my case, what will happen, I'm sure you've probably like noticed this several times, is start out slow, and then I will start talking faster and faster because more thoughts are coming as the conversation goes back and forth. That's the easiest time when mindfulness starts slipping, and then you see like a gradual slide until the mind spins faster, and then words are trying to come out to match the speed of the thoughts that are being whipped up. That's usually what happens.
I know what you're talking about. Exactly so. And so this is a time then for us to remember to be in that conversation, to really listen to what the person is saying and stop thinking about what I'm going to say next or this mind with all of its cloudiness. Let's actually use this in a moment to practice be here now.
Right.
And the be here now is the Zen master just yap. Okay.
That's basically what it is. Honestly, that's basically what it is.
And you're fine. He's yapping and you're fine. Right? Because he can't contact you the way that he used to.
Oh yeah, we got the secret sauce, so we're good. Like seriously. So yeah, it's good stuff. It's very good stuff. So yeah, time to really put this to the test, hardcore. For the next 2-3 weeks. I figure, yeah, like if I'm
That's right. He's home and you're home.
yeah, for the next 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And I figure, yeah, it seems like to me, yeah, the more I put in effort to investigate, better I feel. So might as well just do it more often. Like that's really the way it is now. Like just yeah. So I mean, there's not. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're really lucky. Now you're living with a full-time Zen master.
I know, right?
Ample opportunity to practice. That's really great.
It's ironic because I was just telling my brother as well, I actually get less sleep when I work from home because, sometimes, when issues come up, I end up staying logged in a little longer because sometimes without the commute, you log in a little early to fix some of this code. Then without the commute, you stay a little later to fix the code. And so you actually paradoxically end up working longer hours than going to the office. It's 5:30. Let's get out. So it's interesting. It's interesting to say the least. Yeah.
Right. You need to learn to set those boundaries for
Yeah.
yourself because otherwise, if you get really interested, you'll just work and work and work. I know that. I mean, every coder.
Right. It's like one more feature, one more thing.
Mm-hmm. Let me try this one last thing before I go home.
I know better than to go down that rabbit hole. It's like Friday, nah. Let's just go. Let's just go.
So now you need to apply that while you're working from home.
Right.
Because you're already home, but there's a time to stop.
Right. Exactly.
Employers don't know that. They think that if they can't see you working, you probably are not working. Where professionals like coders and computer people know they work more
Yeah.
when they're on their own.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Wow. Yeah. But yeah. So this week I would say, yeah, stuff is fine and dandy. It's great. The more I do this, the better it gets. Yeah, like revisiting all the stuff that we've learned, and then also picking up on the new types of feelings. That's an eye opener. Correctly classifying the neutral feeling versus the confused feeling. That's probably one of those fine points. Yeah, and I think you're right. Yeah, just smart contacts, right? Like wisdom at the point of contact. That's the name of the game, and then just keep satisfied. I think that's the song we've been singing for the past 2 years, right? Like,
yes, I know, and it's a beautiful music song now you're singing. Good for you, Billy.
Okay, gotcha.
All right. Well, we'll see you later then.
Awesome. Yeah.
Enjoy practicing that book. That's you see, a lot of people can read that book and say, yeah, and not get much out of it to where for you, it's inspirational. Now
sure.
you say, I got to go do this.
Oh yeah, like that book, I'm probably going to read it multiple times because I'm pretty sure stuff's going to come out the next time I go through it. Honestly, I'm surprised that this book is not more popular because usually in the Western, for example, like when I was in college, yeah, the usual one they recommend is Mindfulness in Plain English. That's the one by Bhante. I forgot the rest of his name. Right. Mindfulness in Plain English. And yeah, like why don't people just kind of get into something like this? Like this is useful stuff. I mean, yeah, I guess. Yeah. But yeah.
Well, you could go so far as to say that Bhante Gutamaratana's book, Buddhism in Plain English, is for first graders.
It's for first graders? Right, I see.
Yeah, it's for first graders. It's good for in the beginning, to where Bhikkhu Buddhadasa is much more like the icing on the cake.
I see. I see.
Okay, he's at the end of the road. So not many people then who get started are going to progress that far into it.
I see. Yeah, because I think the thing that really struck me, like you said before, is it works immediately if you actually apply it. Because most of the time, when people read, I mean, myself, like before I met you, is yeah, you read about mindfulness meditation, and they kind of sprinkle some of this stuff in there. Like once you label the thought, your problems go away, or you label the thought and you detach from it. But the problem is, like, they don't emphasize the joy, so you label it, and then you think, I still feel bad. So what am I doing? And then you start thinking, okay, well, if I just note harder, something happens, and
Right.
then
Mhm.
my problems are solved. And so it gets you nowhere because you're just stuck you're trying harder and harder, and it becomes like a I need to try
I
harder, and it
know.
feels worse, and so it doesn't help. But this, you try it once, and you're like, ah, yes, that
Ah,
worked
this is
there.
it. Uh-huh. Okay. Now
So I guess that.
here's one of the ways of looking at that, and
Mhm,
that is like this. To make a cake
mhm,
requires ingredients.
right.
Once the cake is made, you can't see any of those ingredients because they're all mixed in.
Mhm,
It's all ingredients. But what happens if, let us say, to make a cake, you need what, four, five, something like that, five ingredients or whatever.
yeah.
What if you mix? What if you miss two of them? What if you don't have all the ingredients?
Oh,
Okay, so we're making a cake now, and it needs fluid and it needs oil, which can be either from butter or milk, cream, that
uh,
kind of thing. Some people put water in it. They put an egg in it. They put flour. In fact, flour is the basic ingredient, and then a sweetener,
uh-huh.
some sugar.
Mhm,
Well, what if you left out the flour
mhm.
and the sugar? What kind of a cake are you going to have left?
Oh no. Right.
Well, this is the way that people normally practice meditation. What is the flower? It's the breathing. It's the basic point. Let's get this breathing going.
Mhm.
What's the other ingredient that's often missed? It's the sweetener,
It's
the
the joy.
sugar, right? The joy. So you have to add all of the ingredients together to get a cake out of it. And once you get the cake done, wow, is it delicious! But
Yeah,
most people are left with meditation, like, what the hell is this?
yeah. They're like, I remember, yeah, it was, they were just, I remember reading things like, yeah, noting it. They tell you when you note it, you kind of detach yourself from it. And then you try noting it, and it's like, I still feel bad. So, like, what's going, like, what I'm saying? And so you're just like, so what am I doing? And then naturally, people will think, like, well, it's not working because I'm not trying hard enough,
Enough.
right? And that's how you get screwed because you keep thinking that, like, if you sit there and you reach a certain level, some bonus points, you get a prize that drops down, and then bam, all your problems are solved.
Right. And so they say, well, I know a cake has this, that, and the other thing on it, and I made a cake and with that stuff, and it didn't turn out to be a cake. Maybe I need more of that stuff because that's all I know about. But more milk, more eggs is not going to make a better cake. You have to add all of the right ingredients. And so this is part of the problem with the beginner's book
Mhm.
that Bhikkhu Buddhadasa, I think, addresses much better in
Yes.
the sense of anapanasati is a complete whole practice. And to make a cake, a beautiful human being, you need all the ingredients.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And so the joy is often missed.
Yeah. The
And
joy.
so when you work with joy, when you work with gladdening the mind, when you recognize, for instance, going back to that issue of feelings, when the feeling arises,
Mhm.
and we have wisdom at the point of contact, that's basically saying, I see you.
Mhm. Mhm.
That wisdom at the point of contact is when that feeling arises, we say, I've got you. I see you there.
Mhm. Mhm.
I see you confusion. I see you doubt.
Mhm.
Or
Mhm.
I see you not liking.
Right, right,
It
exactly.
was only an itch. Why do you hate that itch so much? I hate that itch. I wish that itch would go away, right? Well, look at the way you feel about the itch. The itch is not the problem. The problem is look at how you feel about it. And when we see that, we can say, wait a minute, I don't have to feel that way at all about that itch. I
Right.
don't have to feel that way at all about the confusion of how to practice or all of that. So that stuff kind of melts away.
Hmm.
But this is a little bit more than where the beginner is. I think that they may not be doing the beginner justice by
Hmm.
giving them only one ingredient at a time.
Right.
That we need to be given all of the ingredients of what needs to be in that mix, in that cake,
Right.
right from the beginning, so that students begin to practice immediately.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Gotcha.
And
Oh,
so it
yeah.
doesn't do the students justice by giving them one little bit at a time
Yeah.
because it's missing key ingredients. So now they work really too hard with
Hmm.
the ingredients that they have,
Hmm.
but they're still not getting a cake because they don't have the right ingredients.
Right. And then they'll start looking, I mean, like I did at, like how does the thing progress? And then they start talking about, okay, like attaining certain states and things like that. And then that's when the whole thing kind of just falls flat, I feel like.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because it's,
Exactly so.
right.
Because they don't have all the ingredients. So
Uh,
that's one of the qualities then, or the distinction between Gunaratha and his book is getting people started.
right. Right.
But he's missing a couple of the key points that Bhikkhu Buddhadasa now is really pointing at directly. And
Hmm.
so it's more of a graduate level
Hmm.
work.
I see. Gotcha. All right. Well, yeah, this week it's going to be playing with drawing lines in the sand with the mind, and then also continuing to put what was read to the test to see if this actually holds up for more than the I've got a new hammer, for like the three,
Uh-huh.
I've got
Right. Now you got to go get that confidence. Go drive some nails.
it. Yeah, everything's right. Yeah, so, yeah.
Excellent, Willie.
All
All
right.
right. Well, we'll see you later.
All right. Yeah. Have a
Eh,
great day. I'm gonna stop before my glasses fall off my nose.
I see them slipping now.
Okay.
I'll let you go so you can touch your glasses. Ah, you almost did it again.
Okay. Good night. Yeah. Bye bye.
Okay, good night. We'll see you. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Yeah.